That's the thing. I thought that we were going to be talking about like your show. Like it's okay. We just gonna rock with it. We gonna flow. However,
Hello, and welcome to A Husky's Health. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. I would like to thank our sponsors at Procyon Partners. Procyon Partners, they're one of the top 50 fastest growing companies in the nation. President Sean Rabinowitz is a proud supporter of Husky Talk. We have to come together as a Yukon family. His son Ben has leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant. And they did a drive for him at Yukon. So I hope that they find a match for him there. We're also doing drives at other universities, and you could be the match to save his life. If not, we'll put the link to the website in the show notes, and you can have a kit sent to you and do the test, mail it back, and see if you're the match. Also, Pete Finch, the Finch firm. If you have suffered a personal injury, if you have been arrested, wrongly convicted, feel your rights have been violated, if you've been bitten by a dog, the Finch firm is for you. He offers all sorts of services, and if you're ever in a pinch, call Finch. And then Bleeding Blue for Good, Mike Burton is a huge part of the reason we've won 7 games in football. But he can't do it alone. We have to step up and continue to raise the NIL money. We're seeing it pay off and make a difference with the players that we're getting. And if we can continue to do that, we will have success. We will get into a conference, and our long-term longevity, at least, will be productive, and we won't have to worry year to year. So now I get to introduce my co-host and cohort, my partner in crime, who has his own podcast, All Black Men Need Therapy, and also has an incredible job with, is it Tech Systems?
Yep, Tech Systems. Yep.
See, I got that right. Chris Bellamy.
Thank you.
My man. He's been away. So we appreciate him coming on, and he's a little under the weather. And we are excited. And we have another guest.
Husky's Health. Yeah, I'm under the weather. So my health is in question right now.
And then our superstar from last week, Keisha Cummings for To Love LLC, wants to spread love and respect and treat people well. And I love everything that you're doing. And your podcast was a hit. I've never had a podcast that's gone over 2 hours that has gotten as many listens as yours did. So thank you for joining us on here. And it was my mistake because I was just so enthralled in everything. I didn't really get a chance to talk to you about your business and what you're doing, because you're also focusing on the struggles of young Black men, especially in the youth age. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about that, since being the best podcast host in the universe, I forgot to ask you about your work.
Thank you for having me. So I used to, that was a strong focus of mine, and it kind of like, it's still a focus, but for such a long time, yes, I did serve predominantly Black boys from marginalized communities.
But it weighed on you. I remember you said that you were taking it home with you, and it drained you, and I know that.
Yeah, and so, and just doing a lot of work, it gets to a point where like you can only do but so much, and then you have to like elevate and try to, duplicate yourself. Or, for me, like during this time, it is like currently during this time is more of like, what can I do to, I guess, like get people to see like the work that God used me to do, and just my belief in terms of empowering the community from within. So when
Which
I
is
like
very
served with the
true.
boys from the marginalized communities, and I apologize because I definitely thought that this was like we were going to talk about this like via your platform, Chris. So I wasn't prepared to talk about myself, but it's
Well,
okay.
yeah, I
You
teased
always got to be prepared to talk about yourself,
I
Keisha. Come on
know.
now. You
I'm,
stay ready. You ain't got to get ready.
I know. I mean, it's myself, so I could talk about it. But so for a long
Exactly.
time, I served. Really, like I told Steve last week, is that I serve humanity. It's just that
yes,
a lot of times I felt like the communities I serve um, were, it appeared that I only served Black boys from marginalized communities, right? Because to me, they were like not looked at in a humanistic way in terms
right.
of like the lack of resources. And so what I try to do is provide resources and get, like I said, the community like healing from within. And so, and it's not me, it's a team of people. It was a team of people.
Yes,
And so I worked in, different roles. I worked as like a therapist, I worked as a teacher. And so what I did was say, I'm going to leave and like create my own system of desystematizing love. And so it was difficult for me to really talk about like different programs or different things I did because I just looked at it as love, right? But I mean, it stemmed from finding housing, from connecting them to different
yes,
resources in terms of mental health, helping them, court appointed youth, just everything to basically tackle poverty, right?
yeah,
And all
yeah,
the
because it's
things that,
everywhere.
yeah, and the things that come from poverty, and especially the trauma that comes from it, Chris, right? And so, and Steve, and so, yeah, and so, I mean, any kind of way that you can serve a community, I probably did it. Whether or not it was
That's what's
mutual
up.
aid, whether or not it was housing, whether or not it was going to court,
Yeah,
advocating for a difference in education. I'm really big on school choice. I don't like to say school choice because school choice tends to be considered like a
yeah. What does that mean? School choice. I'm sorry.
so school choice.
Maybe
Like
I,
I said, I don't like saying school choice a lot because when you say school choice, like people automatically is like, oh, she's Republican, and I don't really
Yeah.
like.
What
oh, it has to do with.
the school choice mean? Despite what district you live in, you can go to whatever school you want. Is that what that means, or no?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
Yeah, you could
Well,
say that. So, like, you guys in Connecticut have like an awesome education system. School choice is saying that the parent has the right to choose what kind of education or what school that their children go to. And like I
oh,
said, school choice is generally connected to charter
politics.
schools. Yeah,
Oh, charter schools. Okay.
because it's connected to like charter schools. And so here
Okay.
in Virginia, when you say school choice, a lot of times it's considered like a Republican thing. Um,
Really?
yeah, absolutely. It's not a lot of charter schools here.
Oh, I
Um,
didn't know that. Okay.
well, no. And so coming from Philadelphia, like I said, um,
Yes.
you know, you
Right.
you have choice. I like to just say education rights. So I'm an education
Right.
right advocate. I believe that education um, gives people opportunity, and I feel like when people don't have options with education, you also take opportunity away from people.
Yeah. If you get stuck in one educational system, that really limits your upward mobility. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So uh, this is gonna kind of go kind of off the rails a little bit,
That's the
but
purpose of the show, Chris. The purpose
yeah.
of the show is to
So
go off the rails.
so I had a moment last week, right? I was at Afrotech in Houston last week, and it's the largest black technical or technology conference in the country. It's been around for a long time, but it was like 20 something thousand people there, like all a lot of brilliant minds. Nonetheless, you speak about school choice, and I know you don't like using that vernacular, but education rights, as you said, and I love that because I had a moment. So, being from historically marginalized population like myself, like yourself, Keisha, right? It's like there's you know what's in front of you, right? Your reality is what you see, right? Your opportunity is what you see. It's based on the most successful person in your neighborhood, for better or worse, right? For better or worse. So I'm listening. I went to this executive fireside chat, and it was with one of the CEOs of part of Mars, the candy company, part of their business. His fireside chat. Yeah, exactly. So Anton, I can't think of his last name, and my notebooks aren't up here, but Anton, I want to say is actually, I'm not even going to try to justify his last name, but his first name is Anton. He's a CEO at Mars. It's a black guy, and I'm up there listening to him, and he had a striking resemblance to my first cousin. Like they really looked very like they could be brothers. Like that's how close they look to each other, right? And I'm looking at this dude, as well put together as he is, articulate as he is, as accomplished as he is, right? Like, because he's a CEO now, but he was a president before. Like, he's done a lot of great things. And I'm looking at him, and all I can see is my cousin. And my cousin, growing up, I looked up to him. I looked up to him. And my cousin was a bad dude, though. Like everything you can think of going to jail for, he did. But he always had money. He was always like the family favorite. Like everybody loved this dude, no matter how bad he was, right? Like everybody loved this. So he had all this charisma. And he was a successful business person, right? Now, be it as it may not be the line of business that's socially acceptable, but he was successful, right? No matter how you want to say it. So I'm looking at this dude talk and I'm listening to him. And I kind of got like a little emotional a little bit because I'm like, damn. What's the biggest difference between him and my cousin? Opportunity and access. That's the only difference.
Absolutely.
Wow. Like that was the only difference.
Yeah.
And it was troublesome to me because I'm like, man, like how many people are lost because of their lack of access, their lack of opportunity from these historically marginalized communities? Because my cousin, like I said, for all the things he's did negative, he could have did all of that positively.
Had he been in
different environment, different access, wow. So again, like I said, this was kind of off the rails a little bit, but you speaking, Keisha, made me think about that moment that I had. And I wanted to call him, but I didn't want to call him and get all deep with him at 11 o'clock in the morning on the Thursday. So I was just like, I'll wait till I talk to him in person, but because we text often, but I haven't spoken to him in a while. And I didn't want to call my cuz, I just saw this dude look like you, man, and you could have been a CEO. Like I didn't want to have that conversation, you know what I'm saying? So, but it's everything you said is true. So that's why I didn't know that educational rights was tied to like, a political party, but I believe that because I know. And Cully, you can attest to this too. And I mean, Keisha, you ran track, but it's like athletes, they do that. Like they try to go to these different school districts to play in these powerhouses and stuff like that. At least when we were coming up, that's how it used to be. And then they were putting moms in jail for this. There was a case where a woman went to jail for sending her kid to another district, which is just crazy.
I think it's in Connecticut, right?
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure it was in Connecticut, but I didn't want to say. Yeah, I remember it being in Connecticut. It's wild. So yes, I get it.
They get in trouble for that. I didn't know that. Forgive me for again asking, what is the definition of a charter school?
Oh gosh. Okay, so a charter school, you have different kinds of charter schools.
Because we don't have them here. That's why I ask. In New York.
There aren't charter schools in Connecticut?
I'm in New York.
Cully's in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, you have some of the top charter schools in New York.
We do.
Yeah.
I'm not in the city though. I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is such a touchy subject. It's so many different things I want. Yeah.
Really?
Jefferson, Canada has a charter school in New York, and it's funny that you say this because I want to.
It's not like a prep school. It's not like a private.
No, the charter school is a public school.
Oh, okay.
A charter school is a public school, and what happens is a charter is like a contract. Like a charter school is saying like your charter is your agreement. And so you are going to educate, like you might have a charter school that is going to be a STEM school. So your charter is your agreement between, your local LRE, your local school board, or your community and parents, and saying, this is what our charter is going to say. Like, this is our contract. This is our governance. That's all a charter school is, but it is a public school. And a lot of people get those two confused. Like, people think that people will say charter schools are private schools.
Yeah, right.
This is such an in-depth conversation, though, because there are.
Is it a different curriculum at a charter school than like a public school?
It depends on what your charter. It depends on what you're like. In Chicago, they have charter schools that focus just on dance. You can have a charter school that focuses on science, technology, engineering, and math. You could have a charter school that focuses on athleticism. You could have a charter school that focuses on music, right? And so you come up like with that charter.
I don't think that's bad though, is it? Like,
so
if
let me I just have to touch on what Chris said about his cousin, right? Because I served probably like when I did work in a school system, I worked at the alternative school, right? And so you might say that bad kids go there, right? I would teach my babies, y'all are not bad, y'all just made bad choices, and so y'all came here. Like, I don't think any kids are bad.
They're not.
So when you say like the negative and positive, it's not so much, because I think that's what allows society to look at certain people like a certain way, because it's not so much. I mean, I'm not saying I don't know what your cousin did, but like for me,
everything you can think of to go to jail.
But I think that he did whatever his environment caused him to do, right?
No, I agree. Yeah, 100%.
And so when you say like, so I get it, right? So I've had babies, and I'm like, you have your cousin had a skill set, and that skill set may have been a skill set of distribution,
right?
Okay,
I see what you're saying.
Like you saying, the richest man in the world at one time, Jeff Bezos, and he might still be, I don't know. That is his skill set, is distribution. He just has a hold on the market of distribution, right? So your cousin has that same skill set, but he just didn't have the MIT education that Bill Gates had. They had the same skill set.
No,
it could have been used in a different way.
Yeah, you're not wrong at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
that's the point.
Exactly. So it's not that it was, I don't want to say that it was bad, because it was like I adapted to my environment. So it's not, you know what I mean? Like
it's the whole nature versus nurture conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like it's the same thing. It's like, listen, trust me. Like, I get it. like I was right. I was writing
the part on both sides.
Yeah. Right. So I was writing a pardon letter for my cousin, and not the same cousin, because you can't get pardoned for some stuff he did. Anyway, for a different cousin, I was writing a pardon letter, and in the pardon letter I said, yeah, I'm in corporate, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I said, but we were one decision away from him writing my letter. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, don't look at where I am and where he is, right? Because it's literally one decision that could have changed everything for both of us. And again, it's environment, it's choice, it's a lot of different factors, but I get it. It is. And I can talk for hours on this topic, right? Yeah. I can take us down all kinds of rabbit holes, but I get it.
No idea. Wow. You're right though. Yeah. It's 1 second, one decision away. Because
here's the reality. It's the people who, like, let's use myself. I won't speak for anybody else. I did some bad things. I just didn't get caught. You know what I mean? I didn't get caught, and I was around long enough to make a different decision. That's it. But every time, like I tell the story not all the time, I don't tell it enough probably, but when I made a pivot, I was like 12. You know what I mean? I just had the wherewithal to understand that there has to be more for me. But the only the largest contributing factor to seeing that through was I literally took myself from where I was and put myself somewhere else. I got around. I got around people that were on different time compared to the guys I was with. The guys I was with, they were on demon time. And these guys that I put myself with was now on. They're like, look, man, we're going to college. We're going to college and we playing ball. So if you ain't about that, then you don't need to be around us, you know. And that was basically the conversation. But now I got something to look forward to, you know. So, but
how did you have the ability to remove yourself from your environment? Because sometimes people don't have.
It's amazing
to be able to do that.
Keisha, I don't know.
God,
I could tell you this. I could tell you this. I could tell you this. So when I was in juvenile detention when I was 12, and my dad came to visit me, and my dad did jail time, you know, prison time, and like I come from like my family, like it's understood that you're going to get in trouble. It's understood that like it was just one of those things, you know, like nobody ever glorified it. But it was just how they were all raised, and it was part of life. Yeah. So anyway, my father came in, and my father's disciplinarian, and I grew up with both parents, and my dad he ain't play around, like he was no nonsense, and but when he came to see me, I was expecting, you know, I don't know what I was expecting, but what he said that really sat with me, he was like. And he wasn't angry. He wasn't upset. He was just like, look, man, you got to make a choice. Like, you got to make a choice on what you want to do and who you want to be, you know? And it's crazy because I go to Hartford Detention. That was the detention center at the time. And I meet one of my cousins that I didn't even know I had in there. You know what I mean? So it was just crazy. And I'm like, yeah, you know, Pumpkin in here. It's like, oh yeah. And I was like, so we just talking about all this stuff. And then he's just like, well, look, man, you got to decide who you want to be. He's like, you make your bed, now you got to lay in it.
That's so good.
He's like, you got time, but who do you want to be? So it was almost like, not that he said he's going to support me either way, because he didn't say that, but he didn't tell me what to do. He just put it on me. And then when I came home, one of my friends I grew up with, he said to me, which kind of cemented it. He's like, Chris, you got to start hanging around people our age, because I was always hanging around with older kids.
Oh, okay.
And when I got arrested, I was 12, and the people I worked with were 15. So he's like, you got to start hanging around people our age, and I want you to play on my basketball team. So we're going to the boys' club. So that's how it started. So shout out to my boy Johnny Reyes. Like that's how it started. So then I removed myself. So from at the end of school, I was going right to the boys' club. And I would stay there till they closed. And that's how, but there was another outlet, you know, like not everybody has another outlet, but that was the only thing that saved me is that there wasn't another outlet. So that's how I was able to make the choice.
But I think you had a level of maturity that most 12-year-olds would not have. And that's why you made that decision. Because
hindsight's 2020. You know, like I didn't know in the moment that I was making a life-altering decision.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, I just knew I didn't want to get in trouble no more. Like that was what I'm like, because the thing is, like I was born in Hartford, but my mom and my dad moved me to New Britain because Hartford was just so terrible. So they were like, we'll give you a better chance in New Britain. But New Britain was almost just as bad. So it was like 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. But I knew that's what they were trying to get me away from. Because every one of my cousins that were my age, they were all jammed up. Like everybody was jammed up at that time in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So it would have been easy for me to follow that path, which if there was nobody around doing something different, I probably would have. Because it was, and there's another psychological component to this that, again, we can go down that path. But then there's, for me, as a kid, you look at how the figures in my family who are in a certain life are enamored, right? And you want that. Yeah. And so it's like, so it's a balance. It's like in your mind, it's like, well, this is what success looks like.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So you naturally gravitate towards that because you don't have any other examples. Somebody telling you, no, that's not success. Right? This is what success looks like.
Exactly.
So I was just fortunate to have another set of people that I could tap into, you know? So that's the only difference. I just had more access to people at the time that were doing positive things.
And that's what you said.
You had access to, and that's something that I advocate for down here for many years, is that you had access to the Boys and Girls Club. And in the communities that I served, a lot of them did not have access to recreation center because the recreation centers are closed. And so I'm like, what do you expect someone to do if they like
Yeah.
don't have, it's like it's an outlet, you know? I mean, and you and I, like all of us know, um, you know, like you said, hindsight is like 2020, but just I didn't think of the depth of like what track did, but I basically was running track my whole life. So I don't know what I probably would have done with all those hours because literally, I mean, from elementary school to my formative years to high school, after school, I'm at practice. I was at track meet. So, you know, that is another thing that Steve that I advocated for here. Basically, like, you know,
Your coach though had a huge influence on you. You talked about your coach.
Yeah,
Up
my
and
coach had
down.
a very huge influence on me.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because he and I spoke after the interview. I told him that I spoke about him, and I didn't know that NIL exists in track. He's like, Keisha, NIL exists in track. I'm like, it does.
Yeah,
so I didn't know that, you know, and I didn't know that. I was sad to hear that, you know, track is not as robust as it was when I was growing up in Philadelphia. He said that it had changed, and you know, I just think that I just understand the importance of Chris. I was telling Steve that like when you're an athlete, like they have total control over you. So I advocate for people to, you know, go like the education route, but at the same time, athleticism you know, athletic program saves a lot of people and gives people the opportunity, like it did myself, to be able to get an education and to be able to
100%.
You know, right? Because I didn't grow up in a marginalized community. I definitely didn't grow up in the communities that I like, nowhere near the communities that I serve. I just served the probably most marginalized communities. I mean, I served what they call the trenches. You know what I mean? But I grew up in Philly. You know, I just grew up in West Philly and in Uptown, Mount Erie. But you know, no, I ain't grow up like, you know, but in nowhere near like in the communities that I serve.
Yeah. The other thing too that I was thinking about this, like in like I was just had a conversation a while ago about leadership, right, in corporate, right, and how you lead teams and everything like that. And the biggest difference is, speaking of youth sports and athletics, the biggest difference is those kids that, let's just say high school age, those kids that are being coached from those communities, they all got one thing on their mind: it's how to get out. Right? It's like how to get out, how to make a way, like how to get college paid for, because they probably can't pay for it on their own. I know I couldn't. So those coaches can push because provided there's trust between those players and that coach, they know that, yeah, it's like this is in my best interest to listen. You know, he's my best shot or she's my best shot to get out. You know, like if I want another way, this is what it's going to take. And that's the biggest difference. You know, I would say that probably stops in high school, because now you talk about NIL, the motivation is different. You know,
You're
like
right, yeah.
You don't know what you coaching these kids for, right? Like everybody's different. Like some kid is trying to get their mom out the hood, right? But there's another kid that's trying to get their mom out the hood that's making $150,000 a year through NIL. You know, like, which is more than anybody in his family. So how you manage that is tricky. Like I hope that these big programs or all programs has some type of sports psychologist on staff, man, because I can't imagine the challenge of that these coaches have with these kids, and these kids have. Like Cully, we talked about it last time with the expectation and everything like that. Like it's a lot, man, and they're kids. Like, let's not forget
kids.
They're kids.
Yeah.
No, that's the one good thing that they're doing at a lot of colleges and universities. I live near Colgate, and Colgate just hired, like, I think it was 2 years ago, they hired four full-time licensed mental health therapists.
Nice.
To work with the students and to work with the student athletes. And I happened to meet one of them at church. And he was telling me, he's like, these kids come in to see me and they are just so overwhelmed. Like they first of all, they want medication. Second of all, they think that their class schedule is too tough, too taxing. And third, it's all or nothing. There's nothing in between. It's like, I'm either going to make it, or I need to leave. I need to transfer.
Right.
And they have to spend
Mhm.
time working with them and coming up with a treatment plan for them, and trying to get to earn their trust, so they believe that they know what they're talking about, and that they can get them on the path to graduate. And he told me he was sad that, like, his first year, that I think he said it was like a quarter of the kids that he saw ended up taking a leave or dropping out, just because they couldn't handle the stress, the pressure. Once you get into the university, it's all joy, rainbows, and sunshine. And then when you get there and you have to do the work and the expectations, that's when the kids, like, he said, he never had seen such a level of depression among kids that of that age group, when college is supposed to be the happiest time of your life. It's supposed to be the
Yeah.
best time of your life. And these poor kids were struggling on a daily basis. And, like, they were only supposed to see him sometimes once a week, and he was seeing kids 2 and 3 times a week, because he felt that they were so close to doing something harmful, because they couldn't deal with the pressure, or he felt that they created the narrative in their head that there was this pressure or this expectation from their family or from their professors, instead of just communicating and having that transparent and open communication. And that's what Chris had talked about, what he started doing on his podcast. That made the biggest difference. Once you open up and you talk and you have those conversations, a lot of things can get worked out.
Right.
So that's why I was curious, like with Keisha, because you're dealing with, like, it seems like a broad range of people, people who need housing, people who need a different type of education. I don't even know what a charter school is.
It was
So,
we don't have a lot of charter schools here at all.
okay.
Our Virginia, unfortunately, the laws don't allow for charter schools to thrive here.
But it
Like,
sounds like it's a good thing, though. It sounds like you can focus on what you want to focus on.
I'm glad you brought that back up
Is that
because
wrong? I'm just
it's so
that
many. It's funny because you just said it was like all or nothing, and that's how
yeah.
I think. Like in terms of education and why I believe in educational rights. Like
Okay.
I don't believe that when you come from a certain zip code and you have to go to your neighborhood school, it's an all or
Yeah.
nothing education. And everybody doesn't learn the same. So I believe that you should have the choice to be able to choose how you get educated. But my mother, shout out to my mom. That's a picture of my mom right there. She's no longer here, but my mother was a Philadelphia public school teacher for 36 years.
Oh, God bless her.
My aunt just retired from New York City public schools.
Oh, even God bless her.
Yes. And so they absolutely, that's why I'm someone that gets it. Like they absolutely oppose charter schools, right?
So they're not great. Uh,
My mom did not like charter schools.
okay.
I grew up
Okay.
with family that were. I grew up with servers. I grew up under the tutelage of servers, like how you, Chris, grew up, and you said that it was like known in your family that you would probably end up a certain way. Like my daddy was a server. My mother was a server. Like I grew up in just a family, both my mom and dad side of people who served. But yes, when charter schools were coming out, because in Virginia, I was part of the uh, first elementary charter school here, which came in 2012, and And so my mom was just like, Keisha, I can't believe it, because it is some cons to it. It's pros and cons, right? So,
Really?
oh, absolutely. So if you have,
Oh, wow.
like in
Okay.
Philadelphia, if you have, because what happens is, um, public schools are funded by tax dollars,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
so you get the funding based off if the child goes there. And if
Correct.
you don't have children that go there, then your enrollment drops. And then therefore, sometimes the school, like a school can close down because of
Yes. Yes.
it, right?
I've seen it happen. Yes.
Exactly. And so my mom, or, would like, she didn't particularly like that, because a lot of schools in Philadelphia, um, people would say that they were closed because you don't have kids there. But I
Because
would
they're
say
going to charter schools.
because they chose to go to a different school. So my
Oh,
thing is, well, they chose to go to a different school. Another thing in terms of charter schools, like some people say it privatizes education, because you can pick and choose who comes in some
yeah.
instances. Like, so you might not have charter schools that, if you have a school full of kids that have IEPs, and a charter school might not have the capability to take those children. And so, like, people might say charter schools take the cream of the crop.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so I mean, there are like, I get it. Like I tell people, like, when I'm advocating for charter schools, is that and I don't like to say that, because I'm advocating for educational rights. I don't care if it's a charter school. I don't care if it's a micro school. Like, I'm focusing on micro schools now in Virginia.
Okay.
Um, because our charter school laws are just so, it doesn't allow for a charter school to really thrive here.
Wow.
Micro schools, project based learning schools, community schools. I just think that competition is creates, um, when you have competition. When you don't have competition, then you just get, like I said, that one size fits all.
It's stagnant. Yeah.
Stagnant. Like
Yeah.
the communities that I serve, they have to go to schools in which they're zoned to, and sometimes it doesn't work, and they don't have
Right.
any other choice. And
There's no
so,
other options.
yeah, like,
Wow.
I believe that, a lot of times people are opposed to school choice, but you're saying that from a place of choice, where you can, like, pick a house. People go house shopping, and the first thing you do as a parent, you're like, let me see what my school zone is.
Right.
That's very
Right? That's
true.
what you do.
Yes.
So
I
Yep.
know
you
my
don't look
friends have
at
done
it.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that is you having the opportunity to have a choice.
Right.
Right? And so I
Right.
think that when we give people choice and opportunities, then we give people a chance to, like, get out, as you would say, Chris, and and make a dent in poverty. Because that's what I fight. I fight like poverty. I believe poverty is a policy choice. I believe that, and I just believe that education is, like, the way out. Like,
Yeah.
since the
So,
communities that I like, when you just talked about NIL, Chris, and people being able to talk to them. Um, I hope that when they financial literacy, like, I think that financial literacy should be in all schools, and that kids should graduate with, like, trades, and because everybody's not going to go to college, and it's okay. I
oh,
know
I know.
the
My friend said
communities that I
that.
serve,
I,
sometimes
I just had this
sometimes
conversation last night.
go ahead.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. My
Oh
bad.
no, just sometimes the kids don't have the opportunity to, because college is delayed gratification, right? And so sometimes I am that older brother. And so I don't have 4 years for delayed gratification, because I got to take care of my family. And so
Mm-hmm.
I might not want to go to college, but for me, when you graduate from high school, you should have some type of trade. A couple of years ago, I was pushing for CDLs to be a part of it. It's a little bit different now, because we have a lot of
Yeah.
technology, but that's going to take the place of drivers. But you know,
Really?
yeah,
At
I
some
mean,
point.
you're going to have automated trucks and that kind of
Wow.
yeah.
I'm
So, but
sorry.
Yeah.
I'm behind in the
like, the
times.
school I worked at, I was like, I feel like every student should have graduated with a CDL. And then doing my research during that time, I focused with the vice president of Peterbilt, who builds trucks, and he was telling in T-Force Freight, and they were telling me that, like, 70% of drivers will, in the next couple of years, will no longer be here because they're baby boomers. And so
Mm-hmm.
when baby boomers
Be a
stop,
boy.
that's a huge, like transportation. Like we need transportation for goods and services. So I'm like, I don't understand why the emphasis isn't like on trucking at that time or logistics or any kind of trade. And then Chris, to your point, to kind of make it full circle,
Wow.
I would meet a lot of gentlemen that would be coming home from the penitentiary and their go-to is trucking.
Mm-hmm.
And so my
Yep.
philosophy was, why do we have to wait until they go to the penitentiary to
Mm-hmm.
get that trade where we can circumvent that and get that trade
Oh,
in high school?
right.
So that's kind of like part of the work I do, but it's so many different things.
Yeah, I tell you what, like my son's only 4, but had he been a senior in high school and he says, "Dad, I don't want to go to college. I want to be a plumber or I want to be an HVAC technician. I want to be an electrician." I'm like, "Bro, let's go. Right? Let's make it happen
Yeah.
because them folks are making money hand over fist.
Because there's
Like
not enough of them.
there's not enough of them because there was this big college push. Which hey, look, I got a degree. I understand the importance and all of that, but I'm completely open to my child wanting to do something in the trades. Completely open. Whereas at one point I wouldn't have been, but I'm
Yeah.
Right.
completely open.
Right.
I think
Right.
because like when we grew up, it was like go to school, get a good education, go to college.
That's what
Yep.
we were taught. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
what we were taught. And then, like you said, Chris, it's like, I mean, electricians, plumbers, making boku money.
Yeah, because
Boku money.
nobody's doing it. I
Nobody's
mean,
doing it.
You
Yeah.
can't get them. Like they're so hard to get. Like just getting on their schedule was crazy. Like
it'll take-
perfect
it'll be a month.
example. Yeah, more than that. My HVAC system needed to be serviced, and I called 3 weeks ago. I called in October, and they're like, "Yeah, we can get out there on 12/2. Are you gonna be around?" True story. Like this just happened. 12/2. I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll be here. Because
Yes.
if I wanted to come out earlier, it'd be an extra charge. But
Yeah.
Oh
that's
my God! Wow.
crazy, dude.
Yeah.
I'll give you another story. One day I was traveling. My wife called me. She was like, "The radiator's leaking." I'm like, "All right, just call them, see what's going on," because I'm not there,
Yeah.
bro. They came here. This would piss me off, but it's like it is what it is. They tightened up the bolt on my radiator. What
That's all.
a monkey wrench that you have in your house. Just tightened it up. $388.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the bill.
$388. I said, "You got to be shitting me,
That's
man."
amazing.
Oh
That's
my gosh, we
amazing.
could curse on here. So no, I'm trying to work on cussing. I like cuss. And Steve, after I got off the show, I was like, yo, I know for a fact that I could not curse because I was on the show for 2 hours and I didn't curse.
Oh no, you can swear. It's a podcast.
I'm trying to stop cussing. I want to be a lady. I don't want to cuss. I want to be,
You are a lady. You're very much a lady.
God.
So Chris,
Go ahead.
if I wanted to, I'm in upstate New York. If I wanted to open up a charter school,
Mm-hmm.
can I do that? Can I just buy a building and say this is the Steve Cully Charter School? Is that how it works?
Actually, you could. Actually, you
government
could.
funding and-
I mean, it's different. It's different steps to it. But so you have charter schools that are like community based, which
Okay.
I like, and then you have
Yes.
charter schools which people oppose, and I understand it, and that are like run by like corporations. And so what happens is, people that like oppose it, again, I have understanding because then you're
Yeah.
saying like you're just taking money. It's just like this corporate thing. It's like lobbying and, like the charter school here in Virginia, the first elementary charter school here in Virginia, shout out to Patrick Henry in Richmond, Virginia, shout out. It was started by the community. So the
Right.
community, and I always believe in that, like with everything, the community, it's funny, right? So the community got together. They said, we want to have a school for the kids that we serve. We don't, like what we see in terms of the traditional RPS schools that we have to send our children to. So they created Patrick Henry Elementary Charter Schools. The school it's a science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, it's a science focused school,
Yeah.
right? But the
Oh, yeah, that's
community
great.
got together. The community came up with the governance. The community came up with the charter, which
The curriculum
folks are
and
supposed to be able to you teach science through because it's
Yeah.
connected to a forest, right?
I like that.
Okay, so let me just tell you, each state is different, right?
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so what happened was here in Virginia, you have to go to your public school board, and they say yes or no. They have control over
Oh,
whether or not you want to have a charter school.
the
Some other
school
states
board.
aren't like that. Like Florida has really good charter school laws, if I'm not mistaken, because I've been kind of off the charter school train in Virginia, um, probably the last 3 years because it was so difficult for us to get policies in place for it to be a successful charter school. So what makes it
Okay.
a great charter school is, let's say Chris, right, or you, Steve, you have the autonomy to hire and fire who you want to, and then you have autonomy over your funding. And so
Oh,
what happens is, if you
wow.
are, Steve, you want to open up that charter school in New York, the child gets $10,000, which I'm sure is more to be educated from the state. When she decides or he decides to go to your school, you will want that $10,000 to come, right? In certain
I
schools, the
yeah,
money
I think
doesn't,
so.
all of the money doesn't follow the child. So, like in Virginia, when we started,
Oh,
65% followed the child.
what do they do with the rest of it? They just kept it?
It's a
Yeah,
great question.
yeah,
Oh,
right.
that can't be legal though, right? Are you
Well,
allowed to
that's
keep
just
it?
how the laws are. That's why I'm saying we
Oh,
don't have
okay.
great laws. Like, so in
To
DC,
regulate it. I
yeah,
see.
in DC you have a traditional public school board, and then you have a charter school board. So you have that charter school board that governs the charter school. So it just
I
depends from
got
like
you.
state to state.
Yeah.
Like I said, in Philadelphia, you can hire and fire who you want. In Virginia, and again, it's a good thing. It's pros and cons to different things in certain states. So, for instance, Chris, you obviously could teach physical education. Steve, you could teach physical education. Somebody might say, or let's use Bill Gates for example. He can't work as a technology teacher because he's not a certified teacher, but clearly he knows about technology. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so it just depends on the laws, depends on the policies. That I mean, the laws in each state, our laws in Virginia aren't really good in terms of bringing charter schools here.
Chris, I wanted to ask you, I didn't mean to change the subject. I saw on your LinkedIn that I think you did a presentation on principles of fatherhood, principles of being a dad.
Yeah, something like that.
I was
Yes.
reading it and I was
What I
impressed.
was
I just wanted to hear more about it.
no, what I'm so thank you for asking. So what I've done, and I don't want to take too much time, but what I've done is I've gone on this like crusade to being a single dad, at a young age, and what I understood to be true, what I now understand to be fact, right? Like, long story short, when I ruptured my Achilles 2 years ago, I had a lot of time to think. And during this time, I kept asking myself, like, hey, are you called to do more? Are you called to do more? Are you called to do more? And I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't sure what that was. Like, I felt like, could there be more I can be given to the world? Yeah, absolutely. But what, I didn't know. Right. And I don't want to be a talking head. Like, yeah, I think I have a compelling story, but I don't know that my story's that much better than somebody else's. Right. But because that's subjective. Right. But
Sure.
then I got to thinking, I'm like, I'm objectively a good father, right? Like I've
Very good
raised a
thought.
successful daughter, right? As a teen dad, as
Up
a
age. Yeah.
yeah, as a single dad with custody, I'm like, I can subjectively say I think I did a pretty decent job, and objectively I can say I did a good job. So I'm like, that just gave me the confidence to say, okay, well, how many more people need to hear about this? And not necessarily my story, but how to help them in their fatherhood identity journey.
That's
So
it. Yeah.
so that's what I've been putting together. So the last 30 days, today's the 30th day actually. I'm gonna release a video when we get off. But
I
I've
thought that
just
was
been I was just talking about I've been talking about the fears, desires, and frustrations of a dad.
yes.
And that's all leading up to I put in to teach this workshop on navigating fatherhood identity for the New England Fatherhood Conference in March. I find out on Friday. if I got selected or not. But it's gonna be like a
Oh, it's
2 hour.
done. You got
Huh?
selected. You got selected.
No, I read
Oh,
it. I was reading it on LinkedIn because I couldn't have a goldfish, let alone a kid. But I was reading it and like I was just impressed with how it was structured, how it was written, and I think it was day 10 that he was
yeah,
on. And
yeah,
I was following it where it was going. I didn't know that it was you were kind of putting together a workshop because I
yeah.
think that is so valuable and the knowledge that you're giving other people is going to make such a difference. And you absolutely belong in that conference
Thank you. I
because
appreciate that.
Yeah, Chris, that sound real dope. Like that
Thank you.
sounds
go
really,
on LinkedIn.
really
Yeah.
that
Is
that
that is actually on my Instagram, Cully? I put it on my Instagram. It's on my Instagram. You read it on my
It's on your
Instagram.
Instagram.
Yes, on
Okay.
my Instagram. Yeah.
and Chris, I
It's
don't
in-
know because I just wanna that's how my brain think. I always just think of like ideas for people. I
Yeah.
don't know if you thought about this, but like that could you could even go into like a high school curriculum because I know I serve a ton of young fathers and they are that's another thing I try to debunk that myth in terms of like black men, especially young men not being fathers. Like the babies I serve are, and when I say babies, y'all, they be like 16 to 26. They just my baby. People be like, "Oh, I thought it was a baby." I'm like, "That's my baby."
No,
Okay.
they're
Right.
still
So, but
kids.
they
Yeah.
are awesome, awesome fathers. But as you were talking, I was like, see, again, being somewhere, but I don't want to get off subject. But as you were talking, I was thinking like, Dad, that would have been dope for you to come into the class and for you to be able to like even have them write it down because it's just, again, you just kind of go off of like what you see.
Yeah.
But
And and and
I think that
and
you
a,
probably could integrate that in some way, like in a high school curriculum as well.
yeah, the plan is to provide I get selected. Even if I don't get selected, my plan is to
Yeah, you'll
take that
speak at
that
places.
workshop because a friend of mine works for the for DCF in Connecticut, and she's like, you can. There's CEs like continuing education for social workers. She was like, you can that can
Yeah.
be a curriculum that you can teach, and they'll pay you to
Right.
come in and do it. So my whole plan is to because I've done some research. Like there's 5.4 million college students that are parents. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, this is why I'm going to be getting with Phil at some point because there's a ton of parents at UConn, right?
Uh,
And when I was going through my stuff, like I was a sophomore in college
you were a
fighting for
baby.
custody. Yeah, and I didn't like. Fortunately, I had a great mentor who started the fatherhood program in Connecticut now 30 years ago, but at that time probably like 15 years prior. So she was helping me with understand my rights and everything like that. But I wouldn't have done half of the stuff because I wouldn't have the confidence because of how we're raised. Like we're
Yeah.
raised that like as a father, you're not a nurturer, right? Whether it's said or explicitly said or implied, it's understood,
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, they're not gonna give me like and it's my kid, but there's like they're not gonna give me my kid. Like it doesn't make sense. But that's programming. You know what I mean? Like it's programming.
Yeah.
So debunking some of these myths, right? Where it's like if you have a child out of wedlock, like you both have equal rights to that child.
You do. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like if the mother can't say you can't see that child, period.
It's illegal. Yes.
Yeah, right. But
That's
fathers
right.
they'll just fall in line,
They
because
will. They'll take the word
because
for it.
they're afraid of the system. They're whatever the case. So I'm like, no, there needs to be. And the last thing I'll say, because I know we're going off on a tangent, but Connecticut is the thought leader in the country for fatherhood advocacy.
Good.
The challenge is we are still behind, and we're ahead of everybody, and we're so far behind.
That's scary.
See what I'm saying? So
That's
there's a
scary.
void, that again I'm working through it, and I'm gonna make it happen. But there's a void that can be filled by people like me. It doesn't have to be me, but somebody like me that can speak to both sides. Like I've co-parented, I've been a single dad, and I've now parented as a husband. You know what I mean? Right. So it's all aspects that I can touch on.
Yay! That's why I thought you said like your wife, but okay, two different. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. No, my wife isn't my daughter's mom. Yeah. Okay. My daughter.
Did you come up with this like all completely on your own? I mean, obviously you learn from watching others and what to do.
Come up with what I'm doing now?
The workshop, yeah, the program.
I mean, yeah, like
bless you, man.
I know. Again, I know what I struggle with, so I know I'm not an anomaly. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, I can't be the only one that struggle with this. So, fatherhood identity, because if you, again, dude, I can talk about this for days, man. But like, you think about the patriarchal society that we grew up in, right? Like, as a father, you're ingrained to protect and provide, right? Nurturing, loving, all of that, caring, empathy, all that stuff isn't taught to you. So if you didn't have a father, you're going to default to that. If you did have a father, provided your father didn't have a high EQ, you're not going to know what that looks like. Like, bro, this is a true story. So my dad, he just started telling me he loves me like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
No bullshit. Like when we hang up now, he's like, I love you. He's never done that. And I don't know if he's getting older or what's happening. I'm not sure. Excuse me, I'm still congested. But
no, he's proud, man.
But that's like my dad's. He's 68, something like that. Like, and he just started doing it, and at first it was uncomfortable. I'm like, man, what's going on?
You don't know how to react to it.
Yeah, like, what you mean you love me? What's happening? But every conversation, like, I love you, and I'm like, I love you too. But it's weird because he's never done it. But whereas my son, who's 4. And my wife's Puerto Rican, and I always say that like Latinas and Latinos are like the most loving and caring communities, right? Like they just love on everybody. So where my son, like, he'll tell me he loves me like 4 times a day.
Yeah,
like, I love you, Daddy, because I say it to him all the time.
Yeah,
but it's because I took that from my wife's culture. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't raised like that. But now it's so normal, and forget it when I drop him off at his grandmother's house. Like, that kid leaves there thinking he can take over the world because all she does is pump him with affirmations, like every 15 minutes, you know. So which is great. But my point is, there's a lot of fathers that don't know that side.
No, they don't,
and don't even know that they can tap into that side. You know, so anyway, that's where the work came from. That's where it's going.
That's so impressive, and I'm just a suburban white kid, so I got nothing. But listening to you guys, I mean, completely just blew me away. Just educated me, like the whole charter school thing, educational freedom. I had no idea that was like a hot button issue. And like you're right. If you get stuck in a school district that doesn't fit and you can't go anywhere else, and you're getting bullied or whatever, and you're really struggling, I mean, you're doomed. I totally understand that and can see how that happens. And
I don't want
where to turn
because it's such a hot topic. Steve, like, I don't want people to think that I'm not pro public schools as well.
No, I know you're not.
I'm pro.
She's staying on that fence, boy. She's like, don't push me in one direction or the other.
Because it is such a political. It is like
I had no idea. I had no idea.
Oh my gosh, when we push school educational right bills through the General Assembly here, they were like killed immediately. They didn't even come out of subcommittee.
Wow.
Because it was like, control. But then at the end of the day, like, I have a lot of friends that are doing a great job advocating for funding. Steve, this literally has to be like a whole nother show because it's so much.
Don't worry about it.
In depth you could go into it.
Well, I want to keep learning about it.
You said that you couldn't be a good dad, but something that Chris touched on before he talked about that, before he even went into what he just went into, I was gonna say, Steve, you could tell that you would be that nurturer dad. Like you would be a
It
great
might be.
father. You would. I'm telling. That's your spirit. Look at your spirit. You got like a teddy bear nurturing, spirit.
Yeah, well, I was lucky. I had a Lebanese father. The Lebanese,
Yeah.
if you know the Lebanese fathers, your children can do no wrong.
Yeah, I have
they
a
I didn't
they
know you
they
were
friend.
know
half
no.
He's
Lebanese,
gorgeous.
Cully.
Yeah,
Look at
I'm
that.
half
I just learned
Lebanese.
something
Yeah.
about you.
So the
Can I ask Chris
Lebanese,
a
yeah,
question based off of what he said about his curriculum?
absolutely.
So, Chris, you emphasize single fathers in in your curriculum, and after you teach your workshop, is it a part where you still try to um, still instill, or you can, I don't know what your belief is, but do you still try to instill the importance of like the family unit or like co-parenting
Man,
and
listen. The
Everyone's different,
there,
right?
there's so many statistics as to why successful co-parenting is the way, right? Because I get it where if you can't be together, like obviously a two-parent household would be the best. But here's what I know. There's no statistic more damning than a father not being in that child's life. That's what I know.
right.
There's no statistic more damning than that. So obviously you want both parents to participate. But in my scenario with my daughter, like there is no other parent. Like she's around, but she's not, active and by no means. So there's no reconciling that, right? There's no getting her to become a parent, right? But
Nothing you can
if it's
do.
salvageable, yes, you want to have a relationship with both parents because it's essential for that child's
It's
growth and
better for the
development.
kid. I
Yeah.
can,
Yeah, but at minimum, you want a father in their life because that's the most there's not a statistic that compares to a father not being in their life. Right? Like,
Trust me, like even being a teacher, automatically, if a young lady came into the room, I could automatically tell whether or not a dad was in her life. I mean,
yep,
automatically, just the way
yep,
that they carry themselves, like certain things, you could automatically
I
say,
agree.
like, okay. I mean, you just automatically knew whether or not they had a father or a father figure in their life. So I do think that that is extremely important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
wow.
So I'll keep you guys posted.
Well, wow, I have to thank both of you. This was an incredible episode and a tremendous learning experience for myself. Uh, Both of you, I commend you for all the work you do and giving back because so many people take, not enough
Yeah.
people give, and I'm one of them. But you guys are doing tremendous work, and I think you're making a difference. And I'm glad, Keisha, you got to talk more because I didn't ask about it, but now I understand. Like you really are an advocate, and you are trying to get better rights and fairness for a lot of these young kids who don't have the choices and get stuck in environments that they can't get out of. And
Yeah.
Chris, I know Chris will go anywhere he wants because his podcast is great. He's now developing this workshop, which I think will be super successful because he has so much knowledge because he's been on every side of fatherhood.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a lot of fathers who've been on every side of it. So I give him credit too. And we'll definitely have to talk more. But
Yeah. Appreciate you
I
putting it together, Cully.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
you
being the
coming.
best podcast host in the universe.
Well, Keisha, you did wonderful. Thank you again for coming
Thank
on.
you. I just want people to
And
live out love. That's it. Live out love.
I will. I got to put your website on, so make sure you give that to me. I got to get your website up,
Okay.
and this will be a good one. And Chris, thank you for sucking it up through this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you, Chris. Chris,
I really
are you related to Bill Bellamy?
It is. I am. I was just texting him actually.
yes.
Oh, you being serious?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
is.
Oh,
He is.
I was just playing.
No, yeah. He'll be
Everyone asked him that the first day we met him.
yeah,
I
he'll
thought
be in
he asked that
Connecticut.
at UConn. I just couldn't remember.
He'll be in Connecticut on Thursday. So if anybody's around, go to the Funny Bone. Bill will be there. I think he has a show Thursday. I'm going to the Friday show. I
Oh,
think he's
he's going to be at the Funny Bone.
yeah. He'll be
Oh,
at the Funny
okay.
Bone.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
awesome. I
I'll
love
be
the
there.
Funny.
It's either Friday, Saturday, or Thursday, Friday. I can't remember, but I'll be at the Friday show. But yeah, he'll be in town.
Okay. Well,
Yep.
again, thank you guys. Keisha, To Love LLC. I can't wait to see when your website's up. That's going to be great. And Chris, again, love your podcast, All Black Men Need Therapy. And I love all the work you're doing, going around the country speaking and putting together workshops. You're really making a difference. And
Appreciate you, Cully.
I always love when I get a chance to come on with you. And this has been a Husky's Health. I am
Love
the
it.
best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at